unique talents give me the ability to be assertive and diplomatic at the same time. I'm a person who will spike the conversation, who will get politics rolling and stimulate new questions and new answers to our current political dilemma facing our nation. I believe I have a keen understanding of the economy and how to improve where we're at relative to other nations around the world. I believe that our goal at America's Third Party was to create a very strong platform in which would propel the American people forward with new opportunities and a new possibility of creating a better nation, a cleaner environment, and less war. I believe that I am the best person for the job of President of the United States. My unique talents give me the ability to be assertive and diplomatic at the same time.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Snake Pit. Trump land. We are in the midst and the grip of a snake pit. Republicans refusing to take witnesses in an impeachment trial, allowing Trump to engage in quid pro quo, even claiming he did do it, but it's not impeachable. More and more abuse of power by Trump, threatening New York, cutbacks in immigration issues if they don't drop the charges against him for tax evasion. Trump is using quid pro quo left and right now. We've opened up a can of worms. But I agree with Trump that we should actually release some people from jail. In fact, I think he should release more than just 10 people. He released Rod Blagojevich, who was engaged in bribery, got him 14 years in jail, but as you can see, he lost his dye. He's going to probably, first thing he's going to do is grab some hair dye and re-dye that beautiful hair of his. Yeah. But Rod Blagojevich got out of a long stint. And I really do think that this was a good move, because what Rod Blagojevich did was wrong. But what Trump did is worse. Trump took $9.5 million from Betsy DeVos in order to become Secretary of Education. That's worse bribery. So, I mean, ironically, it takes a felon to release a felon, and Donald Trump clearly is a felon. He's not charged with any felonies except in New York, pending his final days as president. But this man has been hiding behind executive privilege so long that he feels he's guilt-free, unable to actually be prosecuted, whereas Rod, he felt sympathy for him. And I do too. I feel that Rod served his time. Let's listen in.
That's our most profound and everlasting gratitude to President Trump. How do you properly thank someone who's given you back the freedom that was stolen from you? He didn't have to do this. He's a Republican president. I was a Democratic governor. And doing this does nothing to help his politics. President Trump is a man who is tough and outspoken, but he also has a kind heart. And this is an act of kindness, and I also believe it's the beginning of the process to to actually turn an injustice into a justice. I'm a Trumpocrat.
The Trumpocrat, that's right.
If I have the ability to vote, I'm going to vote for him.
Wow, he had some blood coming off his. What's going on there? That's weird.
Trumpocrat, that's right.
If I have the ability to vote, I'm going to vote.
Yeah, that's strange. I wonder why he was bleeding. A Trumpocrat, huh? Wow. I wonder what that was. It was coming off his chin. You think that was the coronavirus? Prison shaving? Yeah, he probably got a little HIV from the prison razor blade. Yeah, he should get checked out. Shaving with a razor. Either way, I think Donald Trump should hire Rod Blagojevich. I really do. I think Rod Blagojevich is one of the best spokesmen for what he believes in I've ever seen. At one point, I actually didn't want Rod Blagojevich to go to jail because I thought he was entrapped. They never told him he was being recorded when he made a phone call. But hey, you know how the Democrats are. He should never have tried to offer the president's senator position up for grabs for money. But like I said, Trump's done the same thing. He's taken money, committed bribery, obviously, and getting away with felonies left and right. So that's the status of Donald Trump. And he's going to continue to get away with felonies as long as the Republicans who continue to get money from Russia, like Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, and even Pete Buttigieg is getting money from the same Russian oligarch. Can't even believe it, but yeah. Russia is speckling the Democrats, Republicans with cash. And they're easily bought. That's the problem with this country right now. Welcome to America's third party. News that Iran has been hit with 2 deaths from the coronavirus has upset the leadership. They've made some statements about it. They think that this possibly came from America and that we're the ones to blame. I could point the finger at President Xi Jinping for allowing a weapons lab to exist 17 miles away from Wuhan's center of the population. I don't want to point fingers. We need to solve this problem. We need to make sure we have it under control. But some people don't even think it's real. You know, there's been a shutdown, a media shutdown across the board from LiveLeak. People are beginning to believe that this is fake. With lack of information, there's one of 2 possibilities. It really is fake. They just don't want anyone to, get out on camera saying, oh, this is fine. I'm doing great in Wuhan. This is all BS. One guy went on camera in Hong Kong and said, everything's great in Hong Kong. Nothing to worry about. So we don't know if he's working for the government or not. I think that Rod Blagojevich would be a good part of Trump's team. I think he's very well spoken, and he could certainly represent his party line as a Trumpocrat. Sure. Olympia woman quarantined on a cruise ship in Japan tests positive for the coronavirus. Okay. You got something from the live debate, Daryl? Thanks for finding it.
Those are my monitors. Can you see those?
Okay, here she is, quarantined in a cruise ship.
For someone in isolation in an intensive care unit, Olympia bus driver Marianne Obenchain is disarmingly optimistic.
I'm just kicking back, relaxing, enjoying my coffee.
Relaxing and cracking jokes from her hospital bed in Napa.
And I was joking with the nurses. It's like, yeah, can I order wine? And they just look at me and laugh.
But Obenchain's medical status is no laughing matter.
Monday night, they came and told me I was tested positive for the coronavirus.
COVID-19, an unwelcome souvenir after a trip to Asia that began with stops in Japan, Hong Kong, and Taiwan, and ended with a 12-day quarantine on board the now infamous Diamond Princess ship. Obenchain was one of 300 Americans eventually evacuated from the ship and flown stateside. Despite her diagnosis, she says she's lucky. So far, she's symptom-free.
But right now, there's nothing wrong with me, except for that I tested positive.
And that is keeping her positive in more ways than one.
I can either be a victim or I can choose not to think that way and walk away from this victorious. It's just a mindset.
Kristen Ayers, King 5 News.
Well, it's just a mindset, really. Well, how come we have all these pictures of people who are, well, when we were getting loops from China,
Total 8 bus.
we had all these pictures of people dying, shivering, shaking. I mean, the death toll, even the burning of the bodies. Look at that. In Wuhan, I mean, this is a mass grave burial. Incinerators working double time. This woman is bleeding out, God knows from where. Violent deaths are recorded and seen. Yet this woman in Olympia, she's doing great. Yeah. Well, I guess we got two stories here. All the terrible things that are happening or have happened when we did get photographs, some people laying on the streets dead, where they literally dropped where they were walking. And we have this woman from Olympia who tested positive, who's doing great. Well, I don't know. I'm beginning to wonder if this isn't, they didn't just holler in randomly and say, yeah, you've been tested positive. We just want somebody to fill this vacancy here. Because she did look fine, didn't she? Hey, Jeff Bezos is getting on board that climate change thing. Yeah, just like all the Democrats who want to fund climate change solutions, he's offering an amazing $10 billion to fight climate change. Yeah. Well, he can afford it. That's practically, half of a year's income from his profits. I have a feeling that the elitists just said, hey, if you want to get into the party, you're going to have to front the money for the chemtrails. Because the chemicals that they're dumping in the sky above us, pretty much from all the lines across the sky that we see on a daily basis, all of that points to one factor, that somebody's funding it. Somebody's financing the chemical pollution that we see every day. Who is it? Why? Well, ironically, it's $10 billion a year for them to stick chemicals in canisters and stick them in the sky. And these are canisters of, condensed pollution. And they seed the clouds with this stuff, and then it creates what we call climate change. So you're looking at what $10 billion gets you. This is his big donation. Yeah, and he probably bought the same story that they're going to be able to dump chemicals in the air to clean the air. Now tell me that's not the stupidest thing you've ever heard. Actually, the stupidest thing I've ever heard is from Henry Kissinger, the globalist, who said that the only way to stop war is to start it. Yeah, remember him? That's got to be the stupidest thing he said. It's really a new world order. We must have small, low-intensity conflict around the world to stop the spread of war. I'm sorry, but starting wars around the world, Henry, is not the way to stop war. Yeah. Similarly, dumping chemicals in the air out of nozzles and jets isn't the way to stop air pollution. So without going too deep into the chemtrail discussion tonight, this is where all the waste material from our smokestacks is going. In case you're wondering, they're not filtering it, they're sticking it in the air. So Jeff Bezos is probably going to get on the bandwagon. This is probably his entrance fee to become one of the big boys. I wouldn't doubt they said, Jeff, in order to be part of the Illuminati, you must make a $10 billion donation to the Fund for Chemical Pollution. Now, my goal to save this nation doesn't include working with the oligarchs like Donald Trump and denying that we have climate change. My goal is to actually start legalizing marijuana, for one, which Trump will never do. And this is the reason why I think you need to vote for me in the upcoming election. Bloomberg doesn't care. He's not open to the idea of full legalization. Biden is avoiding it. He doesn't want to do it. Bernie's talked about it, but Bernie, by the time they get done, they'll all be profiting, a lot. We're going to limit it to 10% for the grower tax, 10% for the middleman, and 10% for the retailer. A total of 30% federal tax on marijuana sales. You'll still be able to grow it legally, up to 4 plants with this plan per year. If you want to sell it, though, you have to pay a 10% tax. It's a simple plan, but it'll generate a lot of revenue. Similarly, unlike the Democrats, I've got a job plan they don't have. not only will people start making money with legalization of marijuana, but we'll be able to start putting solar rooftops on houses. This is an idea that Hillary stole in the 2016 election, an idea I've had for many, many years now, which if we apply mass production to solar panels, we'll be able to all have solar panel rooftops. And it won't cost us anything. We'll be able to make the money back from the electricity it generates. And that money will come back in the government's coffer, which will then give new job opportunities. What I'm talking about is not socialism. It's hybrid capitalism, a concept that Sarah and I have been developing for years now. And the more we talk about it, the more it pops up with new ideas, like in 2012, we came up with our Baseline Plus, which is essentially a universal basic income. And that's something we're offering the Democrats running are not offering now. They dropped Andrew Yang like a lead balloon. They're debating health care now? Exactly. They won't talk about the real things affecting our country. The Democrats coming up with a health care plan is like Attila the Hun working on his peacemaking skills. I mean, it's not likely they're going to be able to come up with an affordable health care plan. The Democrats ripped us off with Obamacare. Frankly, I don't blame Donald Trump for not funding a lot of the Medicare and Medicaid programs that are out there right now. I was the one that said that we'd never be able to repeal Obamacare, and I was right. Mitch McConnell vainly tried to repeal it. Trump tried twice. Underfunding it is the only thing they can do. But we need to come up with a robust alternative to healthcare problems the Democrats are creating, and that's where the idea that I came up with mobile medical units will come in. And you notice Donald Trump has not talked about mobile medical units at all. Not one single word. Ever since the campaign of 2016. He used to use that idea as his own. I also believe that we have enough money in our Medicaid system to give everybody Medicaid for all. So without charging you guys extra taxes, I'm offering Medicaid for all, okay? Congratulations. I know you'll love it. It's what you deserve. We already have that. We have Medicaid for all. So not charging more than we need to charge the taxpayers, and using the money wisely and properly doling it out to the right healthcare professionals, that's the secret. Our government's been running on a bunch of scumbag, corrupt Democrats and Republicans who simply do this to get reelected, not to come up with better plans. So this plan, the Mobile Medical Unit Rapid Response System, will be fully functional by 2022. It'll take a year to develop 200 mobile medical units to get the American people necessary help they need. Every city will have at least 10. Every smaller town will have 1. Across the nation, we'll have ways of fixing the country's problems without costing a lot. Now, typically this would cost you a $30 copay to get treated. That's it. If you don't have the money, we'll give you the Medicaid voucher, which will give you a $30 Medicaid voucher. Not $150 like they charge now for a typical visit to a doctor. Okay, so we're going to bring new ideas from the chat show back in the show. Covered the bases. Jeff Bezos donating money. That's nice. I don't trust a thing that guy does. Not a thing. We still don't know what happened to his penis picture. I'm sure it's probably out there in play somewhere. Yeah, he lost his penis picture. It's out there. Somebody's using it against him. That's what I heard. It turns out that Prince MBS gave him an app on his phone that had malware on it that automatically did a trace of everything on his hard drive in the cloud, and used they sucked that penis picture into some file somewhere, and whatever he's doing to prevent it from happening, that's on him. But good luck, Jeff, in your effort to suppress the penis picture. Isn't that a pretty picture of Earth? It's fake. Yeah, it's completely painted. There is no actual photograph of Earth. I wish I was allowed in debates. Yeah, let's take a look at the debates. Watch MSNBC Live. This is I Want to Tax You, sung by Bernie Sanders. Well, this is pretty funny.
Senator Sanders, you call yourself a democratic socialist How can any kind of socialist win a general election in the United States?
Well, we're going to win because first we're going to explain what democratic socialism is. And what democratic socialism is about is saying, I want to tax you. I want to have you. I will take these right off your back and let your cat.
Okay. 23 seconds of that for now, but we'll play later. Let's go to the actual debates. Be great if we'd watch it live.
Okay. Go ahead, Senator Sanders. Okay. We'll get you in, Miss. All right. We got a lot of people in here. We got hits.
It's my turn, yeah?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Somehow or another, Canada can provide universal health care to all their people at half the cost. UK can do it, France can do it, Germany can do it, all of Europe can do it. Gee whiz, somehow or another, we are the only major country on earth that can't do it. Why is that? And I'll tell you why. It's because last year, the healthcare industry made $100 billion in profits. Pharmaceutical industry, top 6 companies, $69 billion in profit. And those CEOs are contributing to Pete's campaign and other campaigns up here.
Let's clear this
up.
up.
So maybe it is finally time that we said as a nation, enough is enough. The function of a rational healthcare system is not to make the pharmaceutical industry and the drug companies rich. It is to provide healthcare to all people as a human right, not a privilege.
Mr. Vice President.
No premium.
Yeah, what's that going to cost us, Bernie, and your socialist tendencies? And look at the 5 o'clock shadow. Butt gig didn't shave.
Okay? I'm the guy the president turned to and said, go get the votes for Obamacare. And I noticed what everybody's talking about is the plan that I first introduced. That is to go and add to Obamacare, provide a public option, a Medicare-like option. It cost and increase the subsidies.
Add to Obamacare, increase the subsidies. What's this guy, what's he smoking? Because he's not smoking marijuana. He doesn't want to legalize marijuana. What's his problem?
Secretary pays that. That's how we get it paid, number one. Number two, you know, from the moment we passed that signature legislation, Mike called it a disgrace, number one. Number two, Trump decided to get rid of it. And number three, my friends here came up with another plan. But they don't tell you. When you ask Bernie how much it cost, the last time he said that, I think it was on your show, he said, we'll find out. We'll find out how, or something to that effect. It cost over $35 trillion. Right. Let's get real.
Senator Warren, you get the final word on this. We're going to move to another question. Go ahead, Senator Warren. Go ahead, Senator Warren.
We'll find out.
I actually took a look at the plans that are posted. Mayor Buttigieg, there are 4 expenses that families pay, right? Premiums, deductibles, copays, and uncovered medical expenses. Mayor Buttigieg says he will put a cap only on the premiums. And that means families are going to pick up the rest of the cost. Amy, I looked online at your plan. It's 2 paragraphs. Families are suffering and they need a plan. You can't simply stand here and trash an idea to give health care coverage to everyone without having a realistic plan of your own. And if you're not going to own up to the fact either that you don't have a plan or that your plan is going to leave people without health care coverage, full coverage, then you need to say so. I just want to say on
Scrack.
Man who said he had diabetes. He gets his insulin through the VA, but his sister and his daughter also have diabetes. No way to pay for their insulin. 3 human beings right here in Nevada.
My plan takes care of that.
Insulin costs like $5 to create. Why are we charging $4.50 a dose? I mean,
Have Obamacare?
I am a fan of Obamacare. At the beginning, Mr. Vice President, I just checked the record because you'd said one time that I was not. In 2009, I testified and gave a speech before the mayor's conference in Washington, advocating it and trying to get all the mayors to sign on. And I think at that time I wrote an article praising Obamacare. It was either in the New York Post or the Daily News. So the facts are I was there. Let me finish. Thank you. I was in favor of it. I thought it didn't go as far as we should.
He's coming off like a flat pancake.
To do is get the White House and bring back those things that were left, and then find a ways to expand it. Another public option to having some.
Another public option. What about, we don't even have one right now. What do you mean another public option?
We shouldn't just walk away and start something that is totally new, untried.
Okay,
People
Vice President Biden, go ahead.
The mayor said when we passed it, the signature piece of this administration, it's a disgrace. They're the exact words. It was a disgrace. Look it up. Check it out. Okay. It was a disgrace.
Thank you.
I cover, by the way, I plan. You do not have surprise billing. You bring down drug prices. People are not, it gives people all the things we're.
I want to get a generic medicine system built where our government can actually help create generic medicine, not just bring down drug prices. We could actually make a profit, all of us could, on the sale of drugs. And it'd be safer for people at lower cost.
Policing policy as mayor, quote, we put all the cops in the minority neighborhoods. And you explain that as, quote, because that's where all the crime is. You went on to say, and the way you should get the guns out of the kids' hands is to throw them against the wall and frisk them. You've apologized for that policy, but what does that kind of language say about how you view people of color or people in minority neighborhoods?
Right.
Well, if I go back and look at my time in office, the one thing that I'm really worried about, embarrassed about, was how it turned out with stop and frisk. When I got into office, there were 650 murders a year in New York City. And I thought that my first responsibility was to give people the right to live. That's the basic right of everything. And we started
Why didn't you stop police brutality? People have died left and right under your reign of terror.
Of stop and frisk. What happened, however, was it got out of control.
Yeah.
And when I discovered that we were doing too many stop and frisks, we cut 95% of it out. And I've sat down with a bunch of African-American clergy and business people to talk about this, to try to learn. I've talked to a number of kids who'd been stopped. And I was trying to understand how we change our policies so we can keep the city safe, because the crime rate did go from 50% down to 300. And we have to keep the lid on crime, but we cannot go out and stop people indiscriminately.
Mayor, thank you. Let me go to Vice President Biden on this. You want to respond to that?
Yes, let's get something straight. The reason the stop and frisk changed is because Barack Obama sent moderators to see what was going on. When we sent them there to say this practice has to stop, the mayor thought it was a terrible idea we send them there. A terrible idea. Let's get the facts straight. Let's get the order straight. And it's not whether he apologized or not, it's the policy. The policy was abhorrent, and it was, in fact, a violation of every right people have. And we are the one. Our administration sent in people to monitor it, and at the very time, the mayor argued against that. This idea that he figured out it was a bad idea. He figured out it was a bad idea after we sent in monitors and said it must stop. Even then, he continued the policy.
All right, Mayor, would you like to make a quick response to that?
Yes, I would. I've sat, I've apologized, I've asked for forgiveness, but the bottom line is that we stopped too many people, but the policy, we stopped too many people, and we've got to make sure that we do something about criminal justice in this country. There is no great answer to a lot of these problems, and if we took off everybody that was wrong off this panel, everybody that was wrong on criminal justice at some time in their careers, there'd be nobody else up here.
We need to stop police brutality. I don't hear anyone talking about that.
Sorry.
I do think that this really is about leadership and accountability. When the mayor says that he apologized, listen very closely to the apology. The language he used is about stop and frisk. It's about how it turned out. Now, this isn't about how it turned out. This is about what it was designed to do to begin with. It targeted communities of color. It targeted black and brown men from the beginning. And if you want to issue a real apology, then the apology has to start
with reparations. What is she? Where is she going with this?
Ignorance, day by day by day, of admitting what was happening, even as people protested in your own street, shutting out the sounds of people telling you how your own policy was breaking their lives. You need a different apology here.
Oh, come on, let the guy apologize. He looks like a frog. Anybody who looks like a frog should apologize.
But I want to get something in here with Senator Klobuchar. When you were the top prosecutor in Minneapolis, Senator, there were at least 24 instances where police were involved in the deaths of civilians. None of those officers were prosecuted. You did prosecute a black teenager who was sentenced to life in prison, despite what are now serious doubts about the evidence. Now, the Minneapolis chapter of the NAACP has recently called for you to suspend your campaign over that case because some new evidence has come out since. Big picture, why should black and Latino voters trust your judgment now if it appears you may have gotten it wrong then?
First, I'll start with that case. It is very clear that any evidence, if there is new evidence, even old evidence, it should be reviewed by that office and by the county attorney. That must happen. I have called for that review. This was a case involving an 11-year-old African-American girl named Taisha Edwards who was shot doing her homework at her kitchen table. 3 people were convicted. One of the cases is the one that is being was investigated by a journalist, and I think it's very important that evidence come forward. In terms of the police shootings that you noted, those went to a grand jury, every single one of them, and I've made very clear for months now that, like so many prosecutors, I think those cases, in my time, they were all going to the grand jury. It was thought that was the best way to handle them in many jurisdictions.
You didn't speak up at the time, should you?
I actually did speak up on something very similar, and that was when our police chief in Minneapolis tried to take the investigations of police shootings into his own hands, and I strongly said I disagreed with that. Now I do believe also that a prosecutor should make those decisions herself. And the last thing I will say, because you asked the question about voting, I have the support of African Americans in my community in every election. I had strong support of leadership, and that.
Well, Trump can say the same thing, lady. I mean, come on, he's buying black votes.
Opportunity. You earn it with the work that I have done, the leadership I've shown on voting rights, and yes, you earn it with the work that must be done on criminal justice reform.
I want to talk about transparency here because many Democrats, including most of you on stage, have criticized President Trump for his lack of transparency. But Senator Sanders, when you were here in Las Vegas in October, you were hospitalized with a heart attack. Afterwards, you pledged to make, quote, all your medical records public. You've released 3 letters from your doctors, but you now say you won't release anything more. What happened to your promise of full transparency?
Well, I think we did. Let me tell you what happened. First of all, you're right. And thank you, Las Vegas, for the excellent medical care I got in the hospital 2 days. And I think the one area maybe the Mayor Bloomberg and I share, you have 2 stents as well. All right.
25 years ago.
Well, we both have 2 stents. It's a procedure that is done about 1 million times a year. So we released...
Yeah, but you had a heart attack, and you're walking around acting like it's no big deal.
My whole 29 years in the Capitol, the attending physician, all of my history, medical history, and furthermore, we released reports from 2 leading Vermont cardiologists who described my...
I don't think you've done enough to release and be more transparent. You need to try to be more transparent, Bernie.
With the stress and the vigor.
Stop being a communist. It's a lot less stressful.
Campaign trail, 3, 4, 5 events a day. See how you're doing compared to me.
Relax, you're going to have a heart attack. Take it easy, man.
Transparency on this stage and people needing to do better. Is that response from Senator Sanders enough for you?
No, it's not, because first of all, let me say we're all delighted that you are in fighting shape. And at the same time, transparency matters, especially...
Shaving your 5 o'clock shadow matters. What are you, like, too busy having gay butt sex to shave?
Physical, and release the readout. I think that's the standard that we should hold ourselves to as well. Now, President Trump lowered that standard. He said just a letter from a doctor is enough, and a lot of folks on this stage are now saying that's enough. But I am certainly prepared to get a physical, put out the results. I think everybody here should be willing to do this.
I think we should have a full colonoscopy televised. Exactly how much damage do you have there?
On how to pay for his health care plan, since he said that it's impossible to even know how much it's going to cost. And even after raising taxes on everybody making $29,000, there is still a...
You know, if he wasn't a CIA agent for 3 years and couldn't talk about the McKinsey Group and then claims he's a Christian yet doesn't quote the Bible effectively, I'd be saying, yeah. But when you're openly gay, you might as well just be an atheist. It'd be a lot better for a lot of Christians to accept this guy.
Let's level. All right, let's level, Pete. Under your plan, which is a maintenance continuation of the status quo, can I finish? The average American today is paying $12,000 a year. That's what that family is paying. 20% of a $60,000 income, $12,000 a year. Highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. Just the other day, a major study came out from Yale epidemiologists in Lancet, one of the leading medical publications in the world. What they said, my friends, is Medicare for All will save $450 billion a year.
That's absurd. It's going to cost another $450 billion a year. That Yale study is BS.
Hundreds of billions of dollars of administration. And by the way,
they also talk about eliminating private health care insurance completely, which is absurd. It would kill a lot of companies.
My plan is the status quo, and that's false. Look, if my plan is the status quo, why was it attacked by the insurance industry the moment it came out? And on issue after issue after issue, this is what Senator Sanders is saying. If you're not with him, if you're not all the way on his side, then you must be for the status quo. Well, you know what? That is a picture that leaves most of the American people out.
I want to go to Mayor Bloomberg on this transparency issue. Very briefly on transparency, Mayor Bloomberg, your campaign has said that you would eventually release your tax records when it comes to transparency. But people are already voting now. Why should Democratic voters have to wait?
It just takes us a long time. Unfortunately or fortunately.
Come on. Oh, bull crap.
We make a lot of money, and we do business all around the world, and we are preparing it. The number of pages will probably be the thousands of pages. I can't go to Turbo.
Why don't you put one page out there, you freak?
Here for 12 years in City Hall.
This is pathetic.
This one. It tells everybody everything they need to know about every investments that I make and where the money goes. And the biggest item is all the money I give away. And we list that every single donation I make, and you can get that from our foundation anytime you want.
Okay, yeah, I'm just looking at my husband in the front row that has to do our taxes all the time. We probably could go to TurboTax. And the point of this is I believe in transparency. I had a physical, by the way. It came out well. We might all be surprised if my blood pressure is lower than Mayor Pete's. That might really shock everyone out there. And I think you should release your records from your physical. Secondly, when it comes to tax returns, everyone up here has released their tax returns, Mayor. I think, and it is a major issue because the President of the United States has been hiding behind his tax returns, even when courts order him to come forward with those tax returns. And I think, I don't care how much money anyone has. I think it's great you got a lot of money, but I think you've got to come forward with your tax returns.
Senator, I want to get to you in a second. Mayor Bloomberg, quick response to Senator Klobuchar.
We're releasing them. They'll be out in a few weeks, and that's just as fast as I can do it. Remember, I only entered into this race 10 weeks ago. All of my associates here have been at this for a couple of years, and we do
That's
not.
right. We have. Engaging with voters.
Let me ask you about something else, Mr. Mayor, because Mayor Bloomberg, let me ask you about something else.
Time and get it done.
Senator Warren.
Wish it were that simple.
Mayor, I'll let you get in here, but Mayor
It would
Bloomberg.
save me a lot of money.
Let me ask you about something else. Several former employees have claimed that your company was a hostile workplace for women. When you were confronted about it, you admitted making sexually suggestive remarks, saying, quote, "That's the way I grew up." In a lawsuit in the 1990s, according to the Washington Post, one former female employee alleged that you said, quote, "I would do you in a second." Should Democrats expect better from their nominee?
Let me say a couple things, and if I can have my full minute and a quarter, thank you. I have no tolerance for the kind of behavior that the Me Too movement has exposed.
My full minute
And
and
anybody
a quarter,
that does
thank you.
anything wrong in our company, we investigate it, and if it's appropriate, they're gone that day. But let me tell you what I do in my company and my foundation and in city government when I was there. In my foundation, the person that runs it's a woman. 70% of the people there are women. In my company, lots and lots of women have big responsibilities. They get paid exactly the same as men. And in my in City Hall, the person that's the top person, my deputy mayor, was a woman, and 40% of our commissioners were women. I am very proud of the fact that about 2 weeks ago, we were awarded. We were voted the the best place to work, second best place in America. If that doesn't say something about our employees and how happy they are, I don't know what does.
Senator Warren, you've been critical of Mayor Bloomberg on this issue.
Yes, I have, and I hope you heard what his defense was. I've been nice to some women. That just doesn't cut it. The mayor has to stand on his record, and what we need to know is exactly what's lurking out there. He has gotten some number of women, dozens, who knows, to sign non-disclosure agreements, both for sexual harassment and for gender discrimination in the workplace. So, Mr. Mayor, are you willing to release all of those women from those non-disclosure agreements so we can hear their side of the story?
We have a very few non-disclosure agreements.
How many is
Let me
that?
finish.
How many is that?
None of them accuse me of doing anything other than maybe they didn't like the joke I told. And let me just put, there's agreements between two parties that wanted to keep it quiet, and that's up to them. They signed those agreements, and we'll live with it.
So wait, when you say it is up to, I just want to be clear. Some is how many? And when you say they signed them and they wanted them, if they wish now to speak out and tell their side of the story about what it is they allege, that's now okay with you? You're releasing them on television tonight?
Senator? No.
Is that right?
Senator, the company and somebody else, in this case, a man or a woman, or could be more than that, they decided when they made an agreement that they wanted to keep it quiet for everybody's interest. They signed the agreements, and that's what we're going to live with.
I'm sorry. No, the question is, are the women bound by being muzzled by you? And you could release them from that immediately, because understand, this is not just a question of the mayor's character. This is also a question about electability. We are not going to beat Donald Trump with a man who has who knows how many non-disclosure agreements and the drip, drip, drip of stories of women saying they have been harassed and discriminated against. That's not what we do as Democrats.
Mr. Vice President.
Look, let's get something straight here. It's easy. All the mayor has to do is say, you are released from the non-disclosure agreement. Period. We talk about transparency here. This guy got himself in trouble and maybe saying that he couldn't disclose what he did. He went to his company.
Just to be super clear, that was about the
But look, this is about transparency from the very beginning. Whether it's your health record, whether it's your taxes, whether you have cases against you, whether or not people have signed non-disclosure agreements. You think that women, in fact, were ready to say, I don't want anybody to know about what you did to me? That's not how it works. The way it works is they say, look, this is what you did to me, and the mayor comes along and his attorney say, I will give you this amount of money if you promise you'll never say anything. That's how it works.
Mayor Bloomberg, final word to you.
I said we're not going to get to end these agreements because they were made consensually, and they have every right to expect that they will stay private.
If they want to release it, they should be able to release themselves.
Can I add a word to
Say
this?
yes.
You know, we talk about electability, and everybody up here wants to beat Trump. And we talked about stop and frisk, and we talked about the workplace that Mayor Bloomberg has established and the problems there. But maybe we should also ask how Mayor Bloomberg in 2004 supported George W. Bush for president, put money into Republican candidates for the United States Senate when some of us, Joe and I and others, were fighting for Democrats to control the United States Senate. And maybe we can talk about a billionaire saying that we should not raise the minimum wage, or that we should cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. If that's a way to beat Donald Trump, wow, I would be very surprised.
Thank you, Senator. Vanessa, to you.
Wait. Senator Klobuchar, you're running on your Washington experience, but last week in a Telemundo interview, you could not name the president of Mexico or discuss any of his policies. Last night, you defended yourself saying, quote, "This isn't jeopardy." But my question to you is, shouldn't our next president know more about one of our largest trading partners?
Of course. Of course. And I don't think that momentary forgetfulness actually reflects what I know about Mexico and how much I care about it. And I first want to say greetings to President López Obrador. Secondly, what I meant by the game of Jeopardy is that I think we could all come up with things. You know, how many members are there in the Israeli Knesset? 120. Who is the president of Honduras? Hernandez. But when it comes to Mexico, I am the one person on this stage that came out first to say I was for the U.S. Mexican-Canadian trade agreement. That is going to be one of the #1 duties of a president.
Senator Klobuchar, my colleague specifically asked you if you could name the president of Mexico, and your response was no.
Yes, that's right. And I said that I made an error. I think having a president that maybe is humble and is able to admit that here and there maybe wouldn't be a bad thing.
Mayor Buttigieg,
if you could let me,
good response.
If you could,
yeah, look, I wouldn't liken this to trivia. I actually didn't know how many members were in the Knesset, so you got me there. But you're staking your candidacy on your Washington experience. You're on the committee that oversees border security. You're on the committee that does trade. You're literally in part of the committee that's overseeing these things. And we're not able to speak to literally the first thing about the politics of the country to ourselves.
Are you trying to say that I'm dumb, or are you mocking me here, Pete?
I'm saying that you shouldn't trivialize
I made an error. People sometimes forget names. I am the one that has, #1, has the experience based on passing over 100 bills. If I could respond, this was a pretty big allegation. He's basically saying that I don't have the experience to be president of the United States. I have passed over 100 bills as the lead Democrat since being in the U.S. Senate. I am the one, not you, that has won statewide in congressional district after congressional district. And I will say, when you tried in Indiana, Pete, to run, what happened to you? You lost by over 20 points to someone who later lost to my friend Joe Donnelly. So don't tell me about experience. What unites us here is we want to win. Right. And I think we should put a proven winner in charge of the ticket.
This is a race for president. This is a race for president. If winning a race for Senate in Minnesota translated directly to becoming president, I would have grown up under the presidency of Walter Mondale. This is different. And the reason that I think we need to talk about Washington experience is that we should ask what that experience has led to. Experiences and certainly tenure is not always the same thing as judgment. If we're going to talk about votes in the Senate in Washington, let's talk about it.
Let's talk about the major policies.
Next question is Hello. Thank you. Senator Warren and Mayor Bloomberg, this question is for you. I want to talk about, and maybe this is appropriate here.
Can I just defend Senator Klobuchar for a minute? This is not right. I understand that she forgot a name. It happens. It happens to everybody on this stage. Look, you want to ask about whether or not you understand trade policy with Mexico? Have at it. And if you get it wrong, man, you ought to be held accountable for that. You want to ask about the economy and you get it wrong, you ought to be held accountable. You want to ask about 1,000 different issues and you get it wrong, you ought to be held accountable. But let's just be clear. Missing a name all by itself does not indicate that you do not understand what's going on. And I just think this is unfair.
Senator Warren, you're right that Senator Klobuchar could not discuss Mexican policy.
Fair enough. I am the only one who knows this man and met with him.
I do have to respond.
Come on, man.
This is really, you have just invoked my name again, and I ask you to look at the interview I did directly after the forum, which we went into great detail on Latin American policy. And I want to say one thing about Mayor Pete, where we just disagree. He was asked on a debate stage about the Mexican cartels, which are bad criminal organizations. He said that he would be open to classifying them as terrorist organizations. I actually don't agree with that. That is a very valid debate to have. I don't think that would be good for our security coordination with Mexico, and I think you got that wrong.
Well, at least that's more time in Mexico than anybody. Can I get a chance to say something?
Hold on.
Vice President.
Thank you. Look, I'm the only one who spent extensive hundreds of hours in Latin America. I've met with this president. I've met with the last president, the one before that. I've been deeply involved in making sure that we have a policy that makes more sense than this.
So wait, he wants to classify them as, that was interesting. He wants to classify them as terrorists and she doesn't? I understand forgetting the name, but really don't want to classify the cartels as a terrorist organization? I don't know about that.
God-awful president we have now. I'm the guy that put together $750 million to provide help for those Latin American countries that are the reason why people are leaving, because there's nothing for them to stay for. I've spent hours and hours and hours. And so you want to talk about experience in Washington, it's good to know with whom you're talking. It's good to know what they think. It's good to know what you think. And it's good to be able to have a relationship. That's what it's about.
All right. Well, we are clearly everybody's warmed up. We're going to take a short break and kick off the next hour with a topic many voters have said is top of mind, the climate crisis. We're back in a moment.
If you looked at a
Okay, what's all your takes on all of this? My take, I would say Bloomberg has some valid points. I tend to like Klobuchar. But then there's Buttigieg has a point about the cartels in Mexico. Or wait, she brought up the thing about the cartels in Mexico. Why? I don't know what she was saying about that. I'll have to look into it. And yeah, something like that. Super Dave said if any of them were elected, all the illegals will flood into the USA, he thinks. And why are they talking about, a couple of them are saying, why are they talking about so much about Mexico when it should be about America? They're running for president of America. And Biden is tied in with Obama and possibly Benghazi. Mad Dog thinks they're all a bunch of clowns. Who? Okay, do I care? Alright. This is what David's proposing. Medicaid for all. So that's basically... While I was waiting for that, I decided to take a quick look at the update on the Coronavirus, last updated today at 5:03 p.m. 75,662 confirmed cases, 16,000 people have recovered, 2,125 deaths. And then I like to look at the here in Washington State. You'd like to see a Gen X president? Yeah, there really isn't. I mean, Klobuchar might be the closest you get. Now it's 779 people under public health supervision in Washington State. Climbs a little bit every day.
So how are they? Pretty good?
Not
really.
Not really.
Okay.
Okay, and then I'll wait till it's back on. Oh, so Jake thinks that since Mexico's on our border and the cartels export drugs to the USA, that's why she doesn't want them to be classified as terrorists? Yeah, that was odd. You're right, happy hour. Okay, I guess we're back on.
Welcome back. We received hundreds of questions from Democratic voters, and many of them were about the climate crisis. It's an issue that uniquely impacts Nevadans. John Ralston from the Nevada Independent kicks us off now.
Y'all ready to play some Nevada trivia now? I'm only half joking here. Let's talk about this issue because it's up there in polls. Voters are really concerned about it, as you all know. What you might not know is that Las Vegas and Reno are the vibrant economic engines for the state of Nevada and are also two of the fastest warming cities in the country. In certain months of the year, the heat is already an emergency situation for residents and for tourists walking up and down the strip. So I'm going to start with you, Mr. Vice President. What specific policies would you implement that would keep Las Vegas and Reno livable, but also not hurt those economies?
It is the existential threat that humanity faces, global warming. I went out to Texas, and you have a facility where you have one of the largest solar panel arrays in the world. And when the fourth stage is completed, it will be able to take care of 60,000 homes for every single bit of their needs. And what I would do is, number one, work on providing the $47 billion we have for tech and to making sure we find answers, is to provide a way to transmit that wind and solar energy across the network in the United States. Invest in battery technology. I would immediately reinstate all of the elimination of what Trump has eliminated in terms of EPA. I would secondly make sure that we had 500,000 new charging stations in every new highway we built in the United States of America or repaired. I would make sure that we once again made sure that we got the mileage standards back up, which would have saved over 12 billion barrels of oil had he not walked away from it. And I would invest in rail. Rail can take hundreds of thousands, millions of cars off the road if we have high-speed rail.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I want to get some of the rest of you in on this because y'all have plans. Yeah. Mayor Bloomberg, let me read what you said about this issue. You said you want to intensify U.S. and international actions to stop the expansion of coal. How exactly are you going to do that?
Well, already we've closed 304 out of the 530 coal-fired power plants in the United States, and we've closed 80 out of the 200 or 300 that are in Europe. Bloomberg Philanthropies working with the Sierra Club. That's one of the things you do. But just let's start at the beginning. If you're president, the first thing you do the first day is you rejoin the Paris Agreement. This is just ridiculous for us to drop out. That's who America's responsibility is, to be the leader in the world. And if we don't, we're the ones that are going to get hurt just as much as anybody else. And that's why I don't want to have us cut off all relationships with China, because you will never solve this problem without China and India, Western Europe and America. That's where most of the greenhouse gas. Let me just finish one other thing. I believe, and you can tell me whether this is right, but the solar array that the Vice President was talking about is being closed because it's not economic, that you can put solar panels in into modern technology, even more modern than that.
Mayor, I want to let Senator Warren jump in here, just because you've said something that's really specific to Nevada. And the tension here in this state is between people who want renewable energy and people who want conservation on public lands. 85% of Nevada is managed by the federal government. You have said that you are going to have an executive order that would stop drilling on public land, stop mining, which is a huge industry here. You got to have lithium, you got to have copper for renewable energy. How do you do that?
So look, I think we should stop all new drilling and mining on public lands and all offshore drilling. If we need to make exceptions because there are specific minerals that we've got to have access to, then we locate those and we do it not in a way that just is about the profits of giant industries, but in a way that is sustainable for the environment. We cannot continue to let our public lands be used for profits by those who don't care about our environment and are not making it better. Look, I'm going to say something that is really controversial in Washington, but I think I'm safe to say this here in Nevada. I believe in science, and I believe that the way that we're going to deal with this problem is that we are going to increase by tenfold our investment in science. There's an upcoming $27 trillion market worldwide for green, and much of what is needed has not yet been invented. My proposal is let's invent it here in the United States and then say, we invented in the U.S., you've got to build it in the U.S. That's a million new manufacturing
We're going to stick to this topic, but Senator Sanders, I'm going to move to fracking. You want a total ban on natural gas extraction, fracking in the next 5 years. The industry obviously supports a lot of jobs around the country, including thousands in the battleground state of Pennsylvania. One unit official there told the New York Times, quote, "If we end up with a Democratic candidate that supports a fracking ban, I'm going to tell my members that either you don't vote or you vote for the other guy." What do you tell these workers? It's supporting a big industry right now, sir.
What I tell these workers is that the scientists are telling us that if we don't act incredibly boldly within the next 6-7 years, there will be irreparable damage done, not just to Nevada, not just to Vermont or Massachusetts, but to the entire world. Joe said it right. This is an existential threat. You know what that means, Chuck? That means we're fighting for the future of this planet. And the Green New Deal that I support, by the way, will create up to 20 million good-paying jobs as we move our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. This is a moral issue, my friends. We have to take the responsibility of making sure that the planet we leave our children and grandchildren is a planet that is healthy and habitable. That is more important than the profits of the fossil fuel industry.
I want to keep this going. Senator Klobuchar, you're not on the same page at a total ban of fracking. You call it a transitional fuel. But scientists are sounding this alarm now. Do you take these warnings that maybe fracking is a step backwards, not a step forward, not a transition?
I've made it very clear that we have to review all of the permits that are out there right now for natural gas, and then make decisions on each one of them, and then not grant new ones until we make sure that it's safe. But it is a transitional.
We should not be using benzene to frack. It's extremely toxic to the water tables. No one's addressing, oh, really? Elizabeth Warren was losing it? Really?
Well, she was definitely attacking Bloomberg.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And I'm thinking that they know how important this is. And you can do this in a smart way. One, get back into that international climate change agreement. 2, clean power rules, bring those back. And the president can do this herself without Congress, as well as the gas mileage standard. But when it comes to putting a price on carbon, this is very important, Chuck. We have to make sure that that money goes back directly as dividends to the people that are going to need help for paying their bills. Otherwise, we're not going to pass it. So there has to be a heart to the policy to get this done.
Senator Warren, address the worker issue, if you don't mind, as well. Can you address the worker issue?
So Sarah was saying that Warren was saying that we should basically have science solve everything. We'll apply the scientific method to chemtrails, Elizabeth.
Or for tomorrow. Those are the ones we need to be working on to harden our infrastructure right now. But listen to Senator Klobuchar's point. She says we have to think smaller in order to get it passed. I don't think that's the right approach here. Why can't we get anything passed in Washington on climate? Everyone understands the urgency, but we've got 2 problems. The first is corruption, an industry that makes its money felt all through.
Oh, bullcrap. There's chemtrails being dumped on our heads. They're causing weather modification. And these Democrats refuse to even acknowledge that. It's amazing.
If you're not willing to roll back the filibuster, then you're giving the fossil
I'm so
fuel
tired of her
industry a
mouth.
veto.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Oh, yeah. Apply scientific method to your brain. The climate is very important, but they're creating weather modification.
Their role in harming our planet. You have even suggested that you might put them in jail. Which companies are you talking about, and how far are you willing to go?
I'm willing to go as far as we have to go. First of all, I would eliminate all the subsidies we have for oil and gas. Eliminate it, period. That would save millions and millions of billions of dollars. Number 2, I think that any executive who is engaged in, and by the way, minority communities are the communities being most badly hurt by the way in which we deal with climate change. They are the ones who become the victims. That's where the asthma is. That's where the groundwater supply has been polluted. That's where, in fact, people, do not have the opportunity to be able to get away from everything from still asbestos in the walls of our schools. I have $1 trillion program for infrastructure. That will provide for thousands and thousands of new jobs, not $15 an hour, but $50 an hour plus benefits. Unions being able to do that. And what it does is it will change the nature. Look, here's the last point my time is going to run out. Here's the last point I want to make to you. On day 1, when I'm elected president, I'm going to invite all of the members of the Paris Accord to Washington, D.C. They make up 85% of the problem. They know me. I'm used to dealing with international relations. I will get them to up the ante in a big way.
Vice President Biden, you didn't answer to my questions.
I thought I did.
What would you do with these companies that are responsible for the destruction of our planet?
What would I do with them? I would make sure they, number 1, stop. Number 2, if you demonstrate that they, in fact, have done things already that are bad and they've been lying, they should be able to be sued. They should be able to be held personally accountable. And they should, and not only the company, not the stockholders, but the CEOs of those companies. They should be engaged. And it's a little bit like, look, this is the industry we should be able to sue. We should go after, just like we did the drug companies, just like we did with the tobacco companies. The only company we can't go after are gun manufacturers because my buddy here, but that's a different issue.
We're going to stay on the topic. My question is to Mayor Bloomberg. Mayor Bloomberg, your business is heavily invested in China. I think you mentioned that a few questions back. The #1 producer in the world of carbon emissions. How far would you go to force China to reduce those emissions and tackle the climate crisis?
Well, you're not going to go to war with them. You have to negotiate with them and try to, and we've seen how well that works with tariffs that are hurting us. What you have to do is convince the Chinese that it is in their interest as well. Their people are going to die just as our people are going to die, and we work together. In all fairness, the Chinese have slowed down. It's India that is an even bigger problem, but it is an enormous problem. Nobody's doing anything about it. We could, right here in America, make a big difference. We're closing the coal-fired power plants. If we enforced some of the rules on fracking so that they don't release methane into the air.
Oh, I don't mind making rules on fracking. Sure, that's fine. But we really have to stop the chemtrails. And let's stop the coronavirus. What do you say?
Poorly, like they're doing in too many places where the methane gets out into the air, it is very damaging. But it's a transition fuel. I think the senator said it right. We want to go to all renewables, but that's still many years from now. And before, I think the senator mentioned 2050 for some data. No scientist thinks the numbers for 2050 are 2050 anymore. They're 2040, 2035. The world is coming apart faster than any scientific study had predicted. You've just got to do something now.
Mayor Buttigieg, your thoughts.
Let's be real about the deadline.
Going over into...
It's not 2040, it's not 2030, it's 2020. Because if we don't elect a president who actually believes in climate science now, we will never meet any of the other scientific or policy deadlines that we need to. So first of all, let's make sure we're actually positioned to win, which once again, if we put forward two of the most polarizing figures on this stage as the only option, is going to be a real struggle. Now, I've got a plan to get us carbon neutral by 2050, and I think everybody up here has a...
You can't even have a good stiff colonic. Carbon neutral by 2050. We don't have that much time, Pete Buttigieg.
Breaks down the partisan and political tug of war that prevents anything from getting done. How do you do it? Well, first of all, making sure that those jobs are available quickly. Secondly, ensuring that we are pulling in those very sectors who have been made to feel like they're part of the problem, from farming to industry, and fund as well as urge them to do the right thing. And then global climate diplomacy. I'm a little skeptical of the idea that convincing is going to do the trick when it comes to working with China. America has repeatedly overestimated our ability to shape Chinese ambitions. But what we can do is to enforce what has to happen.
Yes, I want to make sure that the question of environmental justice gets more than a glancing blow in this debate, because for generations now in this country, toxic waste dumps, polluting factories have been located in or near communities of color over and over and over, and the consequences are felt in the health of young African American babies. It's felt in the health of seniors, people with compromise.
Could you pander to the Cherokee Indians, too? What about the Cherokee Indians that you so loved to get your free college education, Warren?
I have a commitment of $1 trillion.
We don't have $1 trillion to spare. We're $1 trillion over budget right now. What are you people, brain dead?
To own up to our responsibility, we cannot simply talk about climate change in big global terms.
Just shut up.
Here, I want to ask you about Latinos owning 1 out of every 4 new small businesses in the United States. Many of them have benefited from President Trump's tax cuts, and they may be hesitant about new taxes or regulations. Will taxes on their small businesses go up under your administration?
No. Taxes on small business won't go up. Matter of fact, we're going to make sure there's more money available for small businesses in the Latino community and the black community to be able to get the capital to start businesses. At the Treasury Department, there's going to be a window available where we can significantly increase the amount of money available so people can borrow the money to get started. They have demonstrated they're incredibly successful. We should not be raising taxes on them. We should start rewarding work, not just wealth. That's why we have to change the tax code the way it is. That's why the wealthy start have to pass this.
Calm down.
Their fair share, and that's why we have to focus on giving people the ability to garner wealth, generate wealth, and that's why this whole idea of redlining, lending to people in areas, wasn't the cause of Wall Street failing. The greed of Wall Street was the reason why it occurred, not redlining. And lastly, I want to say, look, the idea of China is, in their Belt and Road proposal, they're taking the dirtiest coal in the world, mostly out of Mongolia, and spreading it around the world. It's clear. It made it clear when you called them to Washington in the first 100 days. If you continue, you will suffer severe consequences because the rest of the world will impose tariffs on everything you're selling because you are undercutting the entire economy.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Mayor Buttigieg, will taxes on those businesses go up?
It's impolite to you're a little too angry there, Joe. Calm down. It's impolite to point. And you need to shave, Mr. Buttigieg.
billions of dollars in profits, and it puts small businesses like the ones that are revitalizing my own city, often Latino-owned on our west side, at a disadvantage.
Your home city? You didn't even take care of your people in your home city. They don't even want you.
Latino community, it is an investment in the future of America.
When you came from South Bendover, Indiana, and people heard about when you killed the 5 dogs, strangled them, what did it feel like, Pete, when you killed those 5 dogs, strangling them? Did you have sex with them?
But the importance of issues like economic empowerment, like healthcare,
Very quickly, we have an entrepreneurship gap in America.
We have a gap where you took all the money from people who needed to go to college. You stole it from us, lady. You need to be charged with a felony. Perjury at the very least, 5 years in jail, and fraud, additional civil penalties. You violated the law, and you will pay the price. When I become president, this woman's going to jail.
In to have the fund managed by the people who are routinely cut out. It can't just be about taxes. We need to make an investment to level the playing field and end the black and white.
Look, I want to get at something. Mayor Bloomberg, the vice president talked about redlining.
The only one here that started a business.
Mayor Bloomberg, you seem to imply that redlining and stopping stopping redlining is somehow contributed to the financial crisis.
That's exactly wrong.
And that was the implication that came out in your quote. So I want to give you a chance to clarify this.
I've been well on the record against redlining since I worked on Wall Street. I was against it during the financial crisis. I've been against it since.
You shut down hot dog stands. You've been illegal to drink sugar water.
Redlining is still a practice some places, and we've got to cut it out. But it's just not true. What I was going to say, look, we maybe want to talk about businesses. I'm the only one here that I think that's ever started a business. Is that fair? Okay. What we need is, I can tell you in New York City, we had programs, there are mentoring programs for the young business people so they can learn how to start a business. We had programs that could get them seed capital.
Okay.
We had programs to get branch banking in their neighborhoods, because if you don't have a branch bank there, you can't get a checking account. Can't get a checking account, you can't get a loan, you can't get a loan, you can't get a mortgage, then you don't have any wealth. There's ways to fix this, and it doesn't take trillions of dollars. It takes us to focus on the problems.
Senator Sanders, 45 seconds, and we're going to move on. Senator Sanders, 45 seconds.
Billionaires should not exist, everyone. But it's okay for Bernie to make money on his book sales, $2.3 million a year.
Tax code in which not only is Amazon and many other major corporations, some owned by the wealthiest people in this country, not paying a nickel in taxes, we have the insane situation that billionaires today, if you can believe it, have an effective tax rate lower than the middle class.
Senator, maybe just the tax code. Why are you complaining? Who wrote the code?
You did. You and your campaign. Not me.
Oh,
you and your campaign contributions, electing people who represent the wealthy and the powerful.
Yes,
those are the folks.
Democrats.
Come on, Bernie.
Republicans.
You voted for the tax codes too.
Chuck, Senator Klobuchar, let me address.
I was thinking
I understand that, but Senator Klobuchar,
boxing rematch on Saturday in Vegas, and those guys should go down there.
Senator Klobuchar, I actually want to get you to something about Senator Sanders tweeted last year, billionaires should not exist.
Okay.
What say you?
I believe in capitalism, but I think the goal of someone in government and a president of the United States should be a check on that. I'm not going to limit what people make, but I think right now our tax code is so tilted against regular people, and that is what's wrong. I was thinking of your...
I definitely agree. We definitely need taxing on Amazon for sure. They paid no taxes.
Universal child care. And we have not been talking enough about Donald Trump. And let's just talk about Donald Trump, because he's...
This just came in. Millions of dollars have withdrawn from a bank account, proving Epstein is alive. Thanks, Ann. If you have a story to that effect, I want to see it.
And I can tell you the hardworking people in Nevada were not in that room. So the key to me is to not limit what people can make, but make sure that we have a government that is fair for everyone.
So, Senator Sanders, what did you mean that you don't think they should exist? What did that mean?
Amy's been using my words. Amy used hybrid capitalism before. Amy's been using a lot of my ideas. The double the Pell Grants came from our site. She used that in the campaign.
Americans. That's wrong. That's immoral. That should not be the case when we got 500,000 people sleeping out on the streets, when we have kids who cannot afford to go to college, when we have 45 million people dealing with student debt. We have enormous problems facing this country.
Yeah, but you want to give more money away, and we don't have it. Where are you going to get your money, Bernie? I agree with Joe Biden on Bernie. Where is he going to get his money?
Increase in their wealth. Congratulations, Mr. Bloomberg. But the average American last year saw less than a 1% increase in his or her income. That's wrong.
Mayor Bloomberg, should you exist?
I can't speak for all billionaires. All I know is I've been very lucky, made a lot of money, and I'm giving it all away to make this country better. And a good chunk of it goes to the Democratic Party as well.
Is it too much? Have you earned too much money? Is it an obscene amount of money? Should you have earned that much money?
Yes, I worked very hard for it, and I'm giving.
You work? Your money makes you money. You don't work. You're a joke.
Has a proposal that would require all large companies to turn over up to 20% of their ownership to employees over time. Is that a good idea?
I think that employee ownership of companies is a great idea. I'm not sure it makes sense to command those companies to do it. If we really want to deliver less inequality in this country, then we got to start with the tax code. And we got to start with investments in how people are able to live the American dream, which is in serious decline. Matter of fact, last time I checked the list of countries to live out the American dream, in other words, to be born at the bottom and come out at the top, we're not even in the top 10. Number one place to live out the American dream right now is Denmark. And as the, I think, lone person on this stage who's not a millionaire, let alone a billionaire.
Oh, come on. You've been sucking money off of every donor you can find in the wine cave.
I believe that part of what needs to change is for the voices of
his campaign's loaded. I would seriously wonder if he's going to grab it.
Or in Washington to actually be brought to Capitol Hill. It's why I am building a politics designed around inclusion, designed around belonging. Because the one thing that will definitely perpetuate the income inequality we're living with right now is for Donald Trump to be reelected because we polarized this country with the wrong nominee.
Senator Sanders, it's your policy.
That's to me.
Not one mention of censorship, yet people both left and right are being censored on the internet. Not one mention.
Wealth inequality is make sure that those people who are working, you know what, Mr. Bloomberg, wasn't you who made all that money. Maybe your workers played some role in that as well. And it is important that those workers are able to share the benefits. Also, when we have so many people who go to work every day and they feel not good about their jobs, they feel like cogs in a machine. I want workers to be able to sit on corporate boards as well so they can have some say over what happens to their lives.
Mayor Bloomberg, you own a large company. Would you support what Senator Sanders is proposing?
Absolutely not. I can't think of ways that would make it easier for Donald Trump to get reelected than listening to this conversation. It's ridiculous. We're not going to throw out capitalism. We tried that. Other countries tried that. It was called communism, and it just didn't work.
So let me make a proposal that will work, that has not only support from a majority of Democrats, but also from a majority of independents and a majority of Republicans. And that is a 2-cent wealth tax on all fortunes above $50 million. You hit $1 billion, you got to pay a few pennies more. This is a tax.
A few pennies more? I'm sorry, but that's not going to cut it.
To restructure our economy. It means we can afford universal child care for every baby in this country age 0 to 5. It means we can have universal pre-K for every child in America. It means we can raise the wages of every child care worker and preschool teacher and stop exploiting the black and brown women who do this work. It means we can put $800 billion into our public schools, quadruple funding for Title I schools. And as a former special education teacher, we could fully fund IDEA so children with disabilities would get the full education they need. We could do college. We could put $50 billion.
Where is she pulling this money? From out of her butt? We don't have this kind of money. We could barely afford my idea, 6-week to 6-month certification for a job to make $25 an hour.
Wealth tax. It is a question of values. Do we want to invest in Mr. Bloomberg, or do we want to invest in an entire generation of young people?
Senator Sanders, the next question is for you. Senator Sanders, our latest NBC News Wall Street Journal poll released yesterday, 2/3 of all voters said they were uncomfortable with a socialist candidate for president. What do you say to those voters, sir?
What was the result of that poll? Who was winning?
The question's to you.
Well, the question was that I was winning, and I think by a fairly comfortable margin. Might mention that. But here is the point. Let's talk about democratic socialism, not communism, Mr. Bloomberg. That's a cheap shot. Let's talk about democratic. Let's talk about what goes on in countries like Denmark, where Pete correctly pointed out they have a much higher quality of life in many respects than we do. What are we talking about? We are living in many ways in a socialist society right now. Problem is, as Dr. Martin Luther King reminded us, we have socialism for the very rich, rugged individualism for the poor.
Wait a second.
Let me finish. When Donald Trump gets $800 million in tax breaks and subsidies to build luxury condominiums, that's socialism for the rich. When Walmart, we have to subsidize Walmart's workers who are on Medicaid and food stamps because the wealthiest family in America pays starvation wages. That's socialism for the rich. I believe in democratic socialism for working people, not billionaires. Health care for all, educational opportunity for all.
Senator, thank you. Mayor Bloomberg,
government that works
the
for
question
all.
was about socialism.
What a wonderful country we have. The best-known socialist in the country happens to be a millionaire with 3 houses. What I miss here?
Well, you'll miss that I work in Washington, House 1.
That's the first problem.
Live in Burlington, House 2.
That's good.
And like thousands of other Vermonters, I do have
Okay, we're going to take a listen. We're going to listen to Rodney now. Go ahead, Rodney. What's your question?
Dave, are you there?
Yeah, we're online with Rodney here. What's your question, Rodney?
What the fuck is going on?
What?
I disagree with the senator on the wealth tax, but I do agree with her that the rich aren't paying their fair share.
I'm only paying attention because
This is a clown show, bro.
I agree. They can't come up with a decent candidate, but neither can Donald Trump. He can't come up with a decent candidate either. We've got to address the real problems, man. It's Rodney.
Dave, let me ask you a question, bro.
Yeah.
And don't hang up on me, dude.
I'm not your bro, but go ahead, dude. All right, bro. Non-bro.
No, you are my brother.
No, you're not. We're not brothers, man.
And you know that.
No, we're not. We're human. We're not
All
brothers.
right, listen. Dave, are you there?
I'm there. Yeah, what's your question?
Hey, Dave, what is worse, being like an old, like nebbish, like broke Jew, or like a short, like creepy gay Jew? Like, who's better, Bernie or...
You know, Bernie's not very nice. Bernie's saying bad things about Israel. Israel's not a bad country. We're an ally with Israel. As you know, you support Donald.
Hey, Dave, I've told you there's two kinds of Jews, okay? There's Jews that support Israel, and then there's what I like to call oven-ready Jews. And Bernie
That's
is like
so anti-Semitic, man. I can't even allow this on the show. I'm sorry, but
not even true, Dave.
it's anti-Semitic. You just sounded off very anti-Semitic. I'd rather listen to Joe Biden. Thank you.
Hey, your staffers
Yeah, you
paying
can't
at
talk like that on the
25% is wrong.
Don't ever
That would
call
raise
it
another
to be
$800 billion.
anti-Semitic.
We should be rewarding work, not just wealth. And the American people, the middle class is getting killed, and the poor have no way up.
All right. Vice President Biden, thank you. Chuck?
Mayor Buttigieg, I want to get you in on this because, you know, in 2000, you wrote an award-winning essay. You praised Senator Sanders. You specifically praised him for embracing socialism. You have now since said that you're concerned about his policies. But I am curious about this. Are you out of touch with your own generation? Millennials, by a big chunk, embrace his version of democratic socialism. You do not. Are you out of touch with your generation?
No, look, it's true that I was into Bernie before it was cool. He was, thank you, congressman at the time. And
he was into Bernie? Is Bernie gay?
Said that I agree with every part of his policy views, then or now, but I appreciate that at least he's straightforward and honest about him. He's honest about...
Well, he's straight. We know he's married, but he's not definitely forward.
$1,000 to fund his health care plan, although again a little bit vague about how.
Did somebody teach you how to shave when you were a little boy? Because it doesn't look like you learned how to do that. Just a little, 5 o'clock shadow lost an entire election to John F. Kennedy for Nixon.
They're going to be much better off.
My Palmer.
Where's the other $25 trillion supposed to come from? At a certain point, you got to do the math.
Well, we got it all up there on the internet. It's a payroll tax. A payroll tax.
No, but even after the payroll tax, you still have a
because we have a wealth tax. Elizabeth has a good one. Ours is a little bit tougher on Mr. Bloomberg than hers. We're going to raise it in a progressive way, which deals with income and wealth inequality, and make certain, finally, that health care in this country is a human right, not a privilege.
45 seconds, Senator Warren. I'm just going to close it out here. You went out of your way. You went out of your way to call yourself a capitalist,
Yes,
to separate
because I
yourself from him. Why?
Yes, because I am. Look, Democrats want to beat Donald Trump, but they are worried. They are worried about gambling on a narrow vision that doesn't address the fears of millions of Americans across this country who see real problems and want real change. They are worried about gambling on a revolution that won't.
Let's get her a respirator. She has a lot of air problems. I think she may be suffering from COPD or something. Yeah.
To be liked by Mitch McConnell, that we forget how to fight the Republicans. Mayor Buttigieg has been taking.
We interrupt this broadcast to give all the ladies a chance to change their feminine napkins and take a break. Okay. What do you think, everybody? I think Rodney was the most atrocious call I could have possibly brought in the show. I'm very sorry that happened. He was anti-Semitic, and I deplore anti-Semitism, like the kind that Bernie is talking about when he dislikes Israel. Yeah. It's terrible. I'm not against Israel. I'm against the New World Order. We're having some problems with the feed right now. As you can see, Amy Klobuchar is in a still mode, waiting for her next thought. I am not in any way Ashkenazi. That's not true. I'm not Jewish. I was raised Catholic, and I have Norwegian descent. My name, Sponheim, comes from a small village in Germany. Way back around 1100 AD, my family left the castle behind. And those Nazis that came out after that, I am not responsible for those people. No. I am not the Nazi. Okay. I think we're kind of good right there, but, we could always go back and refresh the page. Yeah, I've never been associated with any Nazi. And when you talk about Nazis, you must be, coming up with the government we have right now, run by the Ashkenazis. That's understandable. You'd be concerned. Same thing happened with Hitler and Himmler, all being Ashkenazi. Hey, today's Waste Reduction Wednesday, and they're talking about spending $1 trillion here, $1 trillion there. We're already $1 trillion over budget right now. It's crazy how much money is being spent.
You can save hundreds. Like the sign says.
Oh, this is a commercial? All right. So yeah, there's something wrong with our country. When they have no reason to stop Medicaid for all, which is going on right now. Offering Medicare for all is absurd. Obamacare cost us another $350 billion a year. Trump scaled that down to $300 billion a year because he stopped paying out $50 billion to all these ridiculous clinics across the country that want extra money. That was the only way that it could have happened. I was the one that suggested not paying it. the fact that they couldn't repeal Obamacare, but now the Democrats want to double down on it and give us even more taxes. It's crazy. Didn't they learn from their first experience with Obama? Okay, we're just going to bring in that in just a second. There's been an activist that has disappeared in China who is openly talking about Xi Jinping being stupid. This guy is revealing what he knows about the coronavirus, and now he's no longer found. He's gone. This activist has been detained by the Chinese government, probably sent to a re-education camp along with a woman, and their organs are being harvested right now, probably, you know? So let's go back to the boring Democratic debate.
I want to tax you. I want to tax you. Everyone will pay a good book more before they have to.
Let's begin by understanding that democratic socialism is immoral and wrong, because we are going to have the tax on all of our people, everyone, in order to...
Okay, we get the message. Democratic socialism is more taxes for the American people. Bottom line, that's what we're looking at. And that's why the American people are not responding well with the Democrats. Bezos needs to get taxed. Donald should never have given Bezos free tax years. It's crazy. Our most successful company doesn't pay a penny of tax. And when people are coming into the show threatening and criticizing our show, when I've been censored for 11 years, and there's not one person in this Democratic debate that's talked about censorship. No one talked about the dangers of GMOs and how it causes cancer in laboratory animals, yet we're eating it. No one talked about forced vaccinations and how it leads to autism in the Democratic debate. No one talked about the idea of chemtrails, which is obviously the cause of weather modification and climate change. So they don't want to talk about the issues that are affecting all of us closely. But they want to talk about health care for everyone and promise the world.
To kick off our next round of questioning, here's Hallie.
Mayor Buttigieg, to you. In 2018, Mayor Bloomberg was the biggest outside spender, helping Democrats running for Congress. He's also donated billions towards causes like climate change, gun safety, education. If his money wasn't a problem then, why is it a problem now?
Oh, I think he should absolutely be doing everything in his power to defeat Donald Trump. I just don't think that has to result in him becoming the president of the United States. Look, our party has values. We were built around values like making sure we protect working people. But Mayor Bloomberg opposed raising the minimum wage. Our party has a tradition that includes excellent presidents like Barack Obama, who Mayor Bloomberg opposed. At the end of the day, it's not just about how much money you've got. It's what you stand for. And we are living at a moment when Americans are so deeply frustrated with the way that both Wall Street and Washington seem to have overlooked our lives. You know, the view from the porch of my one house in Indiana is that they can't even see us sometimes. And if we're going into the...
Okay, we're having some problems downloading right now. We're being DDoSed.
Our lives against a president who rose to power by cynically exploiting the frustration of ordinary Americans feeling like leaders weren't speaking to them, then I think that turning to someone like Mayor Bloomberg, who thinks he can buy this election, is no better a way to succeed than turning to somebody like Senator Sanders, who wants to burn the House down.
Mr. Vice President.
You know, if you excuse the point of personal privilege used to say, it was said that I was in the pocket of Mitch McConnell. I'm the only person on this stage that's beaten Mitch McConnell on 4 major cases. Let me finish.
Really?
Let me finish.
Really?
And Mitch McConnell, I've been the object of his affection and the president's affection. The way he's gone after me, this new Republican Party, after me, after my son, after my family.
Right.
I don't need to be told I'm a friend of Mitch McConnell's. Mitch McConnell has been the biggest pain in my neck in a long time.
Right.
And so that's number one. Number two, we have to have somebody who understands what it's like for ordinary people. Ordinary people come up. They have to understand, like my dad made that longest walk up a short flight of stairs, say, I don't have a job, honey. money. We have to move. You got to move with grandpa. How long it took to buy a house. How long it took to get back in the game again. They have to understand the needs of ordinary people. And they are getting killed no matter what people say about this economy, how good it is. And the good part of the economy, it's only 60 seconds, not up yet. And the fact is that we are in a situation where you have the president making clear that he doesn't want any part of me being his opponent. He's spending $125,000 this week to keep me from being an opponent. I wonder why.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Vanessa,
can I respond to the Vice President?
Thank you,
comments, please? He was identifying me specifically in this.
45 seconds to you,
I was
Senator.
responding to an accusation.
So, no, the point is different. Here's what happened. According to the New York Times, the last time that Mitch McConnell was on the ballot, the Vice President stood in the Oval Office and said, I hope that Mitch gets reelected so I can keep working with him. Well, Mitch did get reelected. He did not have an epiphany. Instead, he blocked nearly everything that Barack Obama tried to pass.
Did you ever
and
win
he
anything?
stole a Supreme Court seat
from
the Democrats, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senator. Our next question goes to Senator Klobuchar. About 700,000 young people known as dreamers or soñadores who were brought to this country as children are currently protected from deportation because of a program that is now under the review by the Supreme Court. If the court sides with the Trump administration, which is eager to end this protection, what exactly is your plan to protect the dreamers permanently?
To win, to beat Donald Trump. The best way to protect the dreamers.
Protect the lemurs. The poor lemurs are dying.
Since I got to the United States Senate, in my first campaign, I actually had a bunch of ads run against me because I was standing up for immigrants. And when I think of dreamers and I try to explain it to my state, I found a 99-year-old Hispanic war veteran who was a dreamer when he was brought over to this country. And
to dream the impossible dream.
Serve in World War II. Now, not so easy. The dreamers are our future.
We don't want more dreamers in this stinking country. Look at he's like a 4-year-old with his hand up. Can I talk, teacher?
Reform, which creates a path to citizenship to so many hardworking people, will bring down the deficit by $158 billion and will bring peace for these dreamers.
158 billion is not enough. We need to bring the deficit down by 1 trillion, lady.
Voting in Washington, then you have to own those votes, especially when it comes to immigration. You voted to confirm the head of Customs and Border Protection under Trump, who was one of the architects of the family separation policy. You voted to make English the national language. Do you know the message that sends in as multilingual a state as Nevada?
It is a solid message that people are American, they speak English. I like Amy on that. I would agree with Amy on that one. Make English the single language we use. No more citizenship papers in 200 languages.
South Bend, it was not always easy to stand up in a conservative place like Indiana.
Yeah, you didn't do anything for South Bend other than to say that South Bend over Indiana is not better because of you, sir. And learn to shave. Get one of those Track 4 razors or something. My goodness.
Everyone was as perfect. I wish everyone was as perfect as you, Pete, but let me tell you what it's like to be in the arena. And number one, do the math. If my friend Andrew Yang was up here, that's what he'd say. In fact, I have opposed and not supported 2/3 of the Trump judges, so get your numbers right. And I am in the top 10 to 15 of opposing them. Number two, when it comes to immigration reform,
boring. Okay, I think we're almost done with this, aren't we? Yeah, we lost the feed. Anyway, I'm offering you Medicaid for all, and it's free.
If we fall for, a bunch of
Okay, so somebody said, David, I didn't know you hated gays.
Since I've been in the arena, Ted Kennedy asked me to work on the first immigration bill. We were able, with President Bush, to at least get that bill to a vote. I'm sorry, but Senator Sanders actually opposed that bill, and I worked on it. And if we had gotten that bill done, there would have been a path to citizenship for so many people.
Wow. Bernie went against the citizenship. Now, she's all about giving amnesty to citizens, obviously, or illegals. Bloomberg is not really going to talk now. He's gonna buy your vote.
This country they want a leader that has the heart for the immigrants of this country, and that is me.
You know, maybe leading a diverse city that was facing ruin doesn't sound like the arena to you. I'm used to senators telling mayors that senators are more important than mayors, but this is the arena too. You don't have to be in Washington to matter. You don't have to be on Capitol Hill for your work to be significant.
Guys,
the arena
we are at the end here. I got to let that one go.
Thank God.
We are less than 2 weeks away from a national primary, and I want to ask all of you this simple question. There's a very good chance none of you are going to have enough delegates to the Democratic National Convention that clinch this nomination. Okay?
Look at this, guys. This is too funny. And there's an important lesson to be learned from tweets like this. This is an interesting story. Teen arrested in 1998 for dog slaying. A local teen, Peter Buttigieg, has been arrested on suspicion of the recent killings of at least 5 dogs. Authorities say they were able to locate the suspected individual thanks to testimony of witnesses who saw the teen allegedly strangling a stray dog. Okay, and then there's this little photo that goes with it. Now, the funniest thing...
Go ahead. Bloomberg has some severe constipation, folks, so until he has his bowel movement, we'll wait to hear from him. Here we go. Are you okay, Michael? You want a little kaopectate, maybe some X-Lax? How about a good stiff enema? Pete, could you help with Michael Bloomberg's stiff enema? Thank you. Pete's an expert on enemas. We've lost the feed. I don't know. I must be getting DDoS pretty hard. Oh, DDoS. Will you stop sending links in from Britain unless it's Boris Johnson? See, this is coming in fine.
Introducing the new Land Rover Defender.
Whoa. You mean that's the car that all those rich, stuck-up people drive that I dislike when they cut me off the freeway? Right. Michael, it's time to go to the bathroom. Come on. Let's be clear. I have a good chance, I know. Okay, the debate will continue with the closing comments from the top candidates as they groom themselves. Right now, Pete Buttigieg is going in for a quick shave and possibly an enema. Some of you are engaged in gay sex right now talking about Pete Buttigieg. Some of you are so guilty that if you don't vote for Pete, you'll be considered a homophobe. So your family's saying, vote for Pete, Dad. Prove the world you're not married to Mom as a beard. All right, what do you think of Bloomberg's debate skills so far? He can't debate. Bloomberg is relatively unintelligent. He comes out of the woodwork with these ridiculous statements like, for instance, he said he didn't support fruity vaporizers because he was against big tobacco. Wait a second, big tobacco, they don't make fruity vaporizers, dude. When people stop smoking or vaping fruity vaporizers, they basically had to smoke cigarettes and then become, big tobacco's favorite user. Anybody can make money and be rich, especially if you inherit it. Yeah, and look at Trump. He inherited, $430 million and then borrowed the rest from Russian oligarchs? I mean, seriously, you know that anyone who inherits money can make more money. You're not that stupid, are you? So, yeah, we're going to look quickly at Mike Bloomberg's inherited his wealth. Okay. Oh, Mike Bloomberg is trying to remind voters that Trump inherited his wealth 7 days ago. And Michael Bloomberg didn't? I don't know about that. Bloomberg grew up in Medford, Mass. And attended Johns Hopkins University and Harvard Business School. He began his career at the securities brokers Solomon Brothers. You remember the Solomon Brothers scandal? Before forming his own company in '81, which is right around the scandal occurring. Spending the next 20 years as chairman and CEO. Well, there you go. He made his money sucking it out of the stock market. Well, so we're still waiting for the uptick. This will be their closing remarks. Elizabeth Warren will probably apologize for being Cherokee Indian and lying about that. Michael Bloomberg will probably say, how much more do I have to spend to buy this race? Bernie will continue promising you everything, knowing full well it's going to cost you more tax dollars. Amy Klobuchar is going to learn who the president of Mexico is. That's right. She didn't know the name of the president of Mexico a couple days ago, which is unheard of for a prosecutor, right? I'm not on the stand because I've been censored for 11 years. Why do you think I keep doing this show here? You people are that out of it, you don't realize I've been completely kept out of the loop by the corrupt two-party system? Let's get back to the debates. Check it out.
It is time for closing statements. Each candidate will have 1 minute, and we begin with Senator Klobuchar.
This has been quite a debate. And what I want everyone out there watching to remember is that what unites us is so much bigger than what divides us. And that we need a candidate that can bring people with her. Yes, a fired up Democratic base, but also independents and moderate Republicans. And I've done that every single time. I have won every race down to fourth.
Well, apparently our signal is being heavily affected, so bear with me. We're being DDoSed right now. Old MacDonald had a farm. 5 patients who've tested positive in Spokane, Washington. Are you serious? More coronavirus fear.
Continuing coverage now of a breaking story this evening. 5 people who have tested positive for the COVID-19 coronavirus are going to be transferred to Sacred Heart Medical Center in Spokane.
That word came about 5:20 this evening. KREM 2's Tim Pham is live in the newsroom tonight with what we know so far. Tim.
Well, right off the top, you guys, I want to let you know that the timeline and exact date for the transfer has not yet been released, but local health leaders say it's expected to happen in the next 1 to 2 days. Many of you have questions about why Spokane was selected. Up until this point, we didn't have any known confirmed cases in our area. The Spokane Regional Health District says the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services asked Providence Sacred Heart Medical Center to monitor and care for 5 people who tested positive for the novel coronavirus. We know many of you have questions. We've asked where these patients are coming from, how they're going to get here, and what's the risk to our community. We're pushing to find out those answers. In the meantime, Spokane Regional Health District told us in a statement they're working with partner agencies to bring the 5 patients here, and right now the risk to the public from this novel coronavirus remains low.
Okay, more fear-mongering later. But for now, let's get back to the debate. Oh, Amy.
To defeat Donald Trump. If you look at the choice between a revolution or the status quo, and you don't see where you fit in that picture, then join us. And yes, go to peakforamerica.com and help out. Because we need to draw everybody that we can who believes that we need to empower workers, who believes in climate science, who believes in doing something about gun violence, and recognizes that the only way we can do this is to create a sense of belonging in this country that moves us out of the toxic and polarized moment that we are living in today. I already see an American majority ready to do these things. Now we have a responsibility to galvanize, not polarize, that majority. We cannot afford to lean on the same Washington playbook. We cannot afford to alienate half the country. We must step forward.
You've already alienated me, and isn't your time up?
will be facing issues the likes of which we barely thought of just a few years ago. I'm asking you to join me so that we can deliver that future together.
Okay, so we have confirmation. Isla Fries and Antique both warned me about them coming into Spokane. Corona has arrived at Spokane, Washington.
Of losing our home. I watched my mother fight to save our family. And I grew up fighting to save our family, my family. I eventually made it through school and spent my life as a teacher.
After lying about being Cherokee Indian and getting free money from the government?
Why it gets worse year after year after year. I, for years, have fought for unions to say the way we're going to restructure this economy is we're going to make it easier to join a union and get more power into unions. To fight for students who have been cut out of opportunity over and over because of the rising cost of an education. Look, for me, I am, of all the people on this stage, I've been a politician the shortest time, but I've been the one out fighting for families the longest time. I promise you this, give me a chance, I'll go to the White House and I'll fight for your family. Thank you, Senator.
Vice President Biden. I'm running because so many people
Please give us a moment. We'll clear the room and let
order. This is the Bernie people. The Bernie people are like commies. They're out there screaming everywhere they go.
I'm running because so many people are being left behind. People I grew up with in Scranton. When my dad lost his job, lost his house, had to move. We moved to Claymont. We found ourselves in a position where we had little ability to get anything done. And my dad worked like hell. I learned a lot. I've been knocked down a whole hell of a lot. I know what it's like to be knocked down. But I know you have to get back up. We have to provide some safety and security for the American people. Right here in Nevada, the site of the most significant mass murder in American history, guns. Our kids are getting sent to school, having to hide under desks, learn how to run down corridors to avoid being shot. It's immoral. I'm the only one that's beaten the NRA nationally, and I beat them twice. With regard to health care, it also is something that is a right. Obamacare has to be expanded. It can be, in fact, cover everybody. And lastly, I think it's important that on day one, we deal with sending an immigration bill to the desk. The only person in here has the worst record on immigration is Bernie, because Bernie voted against the 2007 bill. Had, in fact, that immigration bill passed, there would be 6 million members would be now American citizens.
All right. Senator Sanders, you have 1 minute for your closing remarks.
So Biden wants illegals to become American citizens. Wow. Unreal.
Bill having provisions akin to slavery, Joe. But the bottom line is all of us are united in defeating the most dangerous president in the modern history of this country. That we agree on. But where we don't agree, I think, is why we are today the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people. Why 3 people own more wealth than the bottom.
That's bullshit. We have health care for everyone. No matter what happens to you, folks, if you go to a medical facility right now, you are covered. Absolutely covered. You will be covered no matter who you are right now. So what is he talking about? We have Medicaid for all.
Place from an oligarchy controlled by billionaires. We need to mobilize millions of people to stand up for justice. That's our campaign. Join us at BernieSanders.com. Thank you.
Senator, thank you.
And join me at DavidSponheim.com. It is a website. You could actually join me there.
To the candidates and, of course, to all of you, the audience here and at home. The Nevada caucuses are this Saturday with the South Carolina primary just 1 week later. Then the big prize, Super Tuesday on March 3rd. We'll be following it all for you. For now, for all of us at NBC News, I'm Lester Holt. Good day.
And Lester Holt, when he interviewed Donald Trump a couple of years ago, Donald Trump said when he fired James Comey, he told Lester Holt he just wanted this Russian investigation to stop, which is clearly obstruction of justice. Yet none of these cases against Donald were really carried by the Democrats. That's because they're weak. They were unable to put together a solid plan to impeach Donald Trump. They've proven their frailty as a party. I think the debate was a disaster. They never talked about key issues like, obviously, vaccines being forced upon us, especially with the fear of the coronavirus. They didn't talk about GMOs. They didn't talk about the dangers of genetically modified food and how it can cause cancer in laboratory animals. They never talk about the horrible nature of Dow Chemical pushing herbicides and pesticides in our food. You know, they've never mentioned one single time in any of the Democratic debates, they never mentioned the word organic food. Never once. You notice how all the food shows on television never mention the word organic? You know, I'm in favor of a modified use of vaccines where it doesn't push a lot of vaccines on a child right away. I also want to make sure that vaccines are safe. I don't think we have that assurance right now from the CDC, the Crime and Deceit Corporation. Yeah, the people that are trying to, rig all of our decisions to support big pharma, mass vaccination, herd inoculation, that's what you get with the Democrats. And boy, do you get extra taxes. And it's not just millionaires they want to tax everybody. As if we aren't already stifling the economy now. Look at, we've got so many stores closing in America. I didn't hear anything about the closing of the stores. Macy's, Sears, all of our favorite department stores gone. All because of Donald Trump's ineptitude or Barack Obama's ineptitude, unable to actually stimulate the economy. And there's not one person in the entire debate, now that Andrew Yang's out of the scene, that's carrying the torch for my idea, the universal basic income plan. Not one person mentioned it once. So, yeah, $500 per U.S. citizen given to the American people at a time of need. $500 to anybody who's not collecting Social Security or disability right now. Well, they're going to be installing that Google app for the Nevada caucus, but you know that Buttigieg has got all these connections with the people that have the app that they're putting in there. The reason why Buttigieg won Iowa is because they put that app in play. They basically screwed Bernie out of the votes. They're going to try to knock Bernie down early, but Bernie's got a lot of populist support from the people that he fought hard for in the last election. And then he turned his back on and caved into Hillary in the debates. I want to show you, or in the actual nomination period, I want to show you a clip we have from Hillary winning the nomination, of course, and Bernie just caving in, and his wife saying, hey, put it out there. Talk about, getting your name on the nomination ballot. Not once did he step up for himself. Bernie caved at a critical time. And that's kind of a strange outcome when you think about it. Let's take a look at that rare moment. Now, Bernie will cave again. That's one of the problems with Bernie. He's buyable. He likes money. He made 2 $600,000 houses in the time he became, the second runner-up. Bernie, feel the burn.
What's been sickening more than one cycle since I've been paying attention to politics in my short life is how quickly seeming champions of the people will just suddenly turn on everyone and betray them and endorse the very candidate that people would love to see exiled from the country and put on an island like Napoleon or something.
Most of you know this already, that our elections are bread and circuses. It's a big show. It gets everyone involved and makes them feel like they still have a voice in a completely corrupt, thoroughly corrupt system. And what you're seeing right now with the DNC is an inception level of corruption. It's corruption inside corruption wrapped inside more corruption. Because this whole WikiLeaks thing came out and implicated the DNC in basically rigging the primaries against Bernie and for Hillary, something we all knew was going on, and it was really obvious. Come on, with the improbable coin tosses and card flips, it was a joke. It was a big joke. And everybody knew it. But now there's evidence of it in print. And no one is addressing this, least of all Bernie. He's basically taking it the same exact way Ron Paul took it. Continued to, of course, soak up campaign contributions, but just basically rolled over and took it. Because these people, whatever deal they have made, whatever part they are playing, that's already happened a long time ago. What's sad is that the people who stand behind these people don't understand that.
Bernie Sanders inspired a movement, but with raw wounds reopened, he was forced to play the role of healer, trying to soothe his increasing...
Okay, Jane Sanders caught on tape here. Let's see if we can get this up and running. Hang on.
Thank you all very much.
They don't know your name is being put in nomination. That's the concern.
Look, I think there's a very, very important...
Okay, thank you. So check this out. Jane walked up to him at the end of the 2016 debate when he could have fought for the nomination. Jane walked up to him and said, and I'll repeat for you, they don't know your name is being put in nomination. Here his wife was trying to tell him that they didn't know his name was being put into nomination. That's their concern. You go for broke line right now. She's ordering him to go for broke line. What does he do? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Bernie had a chance to win the nomination over Hillary at that time, and he didn't. Proof that he threw that election. His own wife knew more about where he should have gone at that point. She should have been running for president. This guy doesn't really want to win. He wants to just push his agenda, his ideological agenda of democratic socialism / communism. Thanks for coming in, everyone. Putting up with the debates has not been easy. I realize that some of you come in here for an alternative view of the world, not the majority view promoted by the mainstream media. Today we found out that Spokane has 5 people who are infected with the coronavirus, so it's moving in. A couple of you told me about that last night. 2 people in Iran have died from the coronavirus. Again, we don't know the amplitude of this disease, how far off the map it is. You can look at this as a possible pandemic. You could look at it as a hoax. Your choice. I'm not going to force you to believe that this is a deadly bioweapon with a 100% kill rate, but that's the conspiracy theory out there that is being promoted. And I'm not going to promote it. I'd merely mention it. I can't corroborate one letter that came in some weird blog site from what claimed to be a Chinese top government official who is speaking from his conscience. But what we do know is that very little information is being let out of China right now. We've had hardly any live leak information brought to us whatsoever. Okay, Dana Rohrabacher denies offering Assange a pardon from Trump. Of all the people, Dana Rohrabacher, the guy that Kevin McCarthy said was working with Russians, to talk about him and Trump, and at the same time it's kind of funny. Kevin McCarthy warned ahead of the 2016 election there's 2 people working for the Russians, Dana Rohrabacher and Donald Trump. And he wouldn't repeat that statement after Trump won. Yeah, Rod Blagojevich, his news conference was weird. You notice how he started bleeding from his chin? That was weird. He had blood coming off his chin. I guess he just had a quick shave in prison and they got him out. I'm glad Blagojevich is out. I like Blagojevich. I won't hide that fact. I liked his speaking ability. I liked his style. I thought he was a little bit too much of a braggart, but you know, what politician out there in America right now isn't? But after many years in jail, he's not much of a braggart anymore, is he? Yeah, I agree. Trump is the worst president in history because he doesn't understand the nature of our government and how it operates, nor does he understand the balance of powers that exist in the world. He's dangerous. Donald Trump is. But the allegation that Trump offered a pardon to Julian Assange if he denied certain things about Russia involvement in the WikiLeaks, a former congressman, Rohrabacher, has denied he offered pardon WikiLeaks Julian Assange on behalf of Trump. Okay, so it's just a rumor. He said he had acting on instructions from Trump in offering clemency. In return, the president was said to have wanted Assange to stay in Russia, was not involved in was to say Russia was not involved in leaking emails during the 2016 U.S. election. So he rejects the claim that he said that, but at no time did I talk to Trump about Julian Assange. Likewise, I was not directed by Trump or anyone else connected with him to meet with Julian Assange, he said in a statement. But Mr. Rohrabacher said he was acting on his own fact-finding mission. Well, Rohrabacher is working for Russia, we know that, and to scrub Russia's connection to the election from Julian Assange in exchange for clemency, that's just too weird. That's like a quid pro quo. Trump is into the quid pro quo thing, I'm telling you. He just did it with New York, claiming that New York was not going to get their money, or not going to get preferential treatment with immigration if they didn't get rid of his tax evasion lawsuits and felony convictions. Yeah. We keep talking about the story. Of course, the mainstream media doesn't cover it. Trump accused of another quid pro quo, this time with New York. Unbelievable. These are stories that just go right by the mainstream media. They don't want to talk about the truth. The truth is both parties are getting lots of money from Russia and Ukraine and other countries that we give money to. You know, we gave 1.5 trillion to, or excuse me, 1.5 billion to Pakistan every year for many years. And Pakistan used a portion of that, $100 million of the 1.5 billion. They used 100 million to come into our country and buy lobbyists to get more legislation to pass for more money for Pakistan. So it's not uncommon for these countries like Ukraine to use some of that 400 million to buy politicians here in America. So that's what's going on. The Democrats and Republicans are both getting money from foreign governments. I hate to say it, that's what they're hiding. Okay. Fox News has a rally streaming with the president. Is he standing there streaming live? Is this kind of like the PP tape? Live stream? Feel the burn, yeah? What
Tell your
burn?
doctor right away if you have new or worse.
Ask your doctor if you're having certain cramping. Yeah, Mike Bloomberg is wasting billions of dollars, at least $1 billion on his fake presidency. I agree, T. Tommy. Rod Blagojevich didn't have any hair dye. So his hair is completely clear right now. It's, yeah, here he was.
Vote for him. I want to express our most profound and everlasting gratitude to President Trump. How do you properly thank someone who's given you back the freedom that was stolen from you? He didn't have to do this. He's a Republican president. I was a Democratic governor. And doing this does nothing to help his politics. President Trump is a man who is tough and outspoken, but he also has a kind heart. And this is an act of kindness, and I also believe it's the beginning of the process to actually turn an injustice into a justice. I'm a Trumpocrat.
The Trumpocrat, that's right.
You're a Trumpocrat who's bleeding.
The Trumpocrat, that's right. That's right.
Oh my gosh, he's bleeding. Yeah. He must have cut himself shaving. Bernie doesn't have any hair to comb. I mean, Bernie looks like Methuselah, except he's much younger. Whatever. He got out of prison, man. I mean, he was in there a long time. Dave, don't have a Gmail, you are out. Who owns Gmail? Unfortunately, Gmail is what we have. Yeah. We could easily open up another Proton mail account or something if you really want to get your information to me. Trump's trying to get Illinois votes right now. We'll take a look at the Fox News feed we got from Mad Dog. Pigeons were released in downtown Las Vegas were wearing MAGA hats. Oh, I heard about that, yeah. The debates happen in Vegas, and everything that happens in Vegas stays in Vegas on videotape. So, let's take a look at the Vegas situation here. Pigeons wearing MAGA hats. Released by a prank group ahead of Wednesday's Democratic debate. Yeah, look at that. Make America Great Again. Pigeons said the project was the result of months of exhaustive research, logistically hurdles, and pigeon caretaking. Wow. They're called Putin, the prank group. In December, also in Vegas, cowboy hats were put on pigeons. This prompted concern from an animal advocacy organization that hats may harm the birds. Okay. Let's not harm the birds. We're still getting commercials on the Fox News channel. Fair and unbalanced. Unfair and imbalanced news from Fox. So the whole deal across the nation is Fox tries to make you hate Democrats. CNN tries to make you hate Republicans. And together we are divided. Our country is separated, and this is all by design. And the reason why I have been censored for 11 years in a country that claims to be free and democratic, hypocritically, is because I preach uniting the country in the center of the political spectrum. And the most dangerous person in a corrupt society is, of course, an honest person.
A name, it happens. But let's just be clear. Missing a name all by itself does not indicate that you do not understand what's going on.
Beyond going after each other, the Democratic candidates occasionally got a little testy with the moderators. Let's discuss with Fox News Media Buzz host Howie Kurtz. Good evening, Howie. So what about the moderators?
Good evening, Mike. The MS... Well,
This guy's name is Howie Hertz? I don't know, man. I thought I was going to a live feed of President Trump's trying to come up with things to talk about. Well, let's be clear.
Anything more. What happened to your promise of full transparency?
There are some Democrats who like you a lot, but who worry that this plan, Medicare for All, is going to take away private insurance and that it goes too far. Are they right?
No. What does that kind of language say about how you view people of color or people in minority neighborhoods?
that last question about Mike Bloomberg's record on stop and frisk in New York City. Look, there were specific questions about their records, questions that produced clashes between the candidates, and the smartest thing the moderators did, they disappeared now and then and let the rivals go at it, particularly Amy Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg were dripping condescension toward her.
Pete Buttigieg dripping condescension. I don't know about that dripping analogy when talking about Pete Buttigieg, you know? It's just a little low. Unlimited 4G hotspot for $20 a month? Wow, Drag King. You're discovering secrets to the 4G network.
The solution for unlimited hotspot data through your cell phone is finally here, and it's cheap. How about $20 a month cheap?
Cool.
Stay tuned to find out how.
I'll be playing this tonight in our show. Thanks for that, Drag King. You know, they did a similar thing with the 4G or the 3G network, but now that the 5G network is rolling out, people are able to get 4G communication, which is very fast. You don't have any problems downloading a movie on your 4K mini iPhone. You have no need to worry with 4G, but for $20 a month, some of you are paying up to $200 a month for your cell phone signals. I mean, I grew up in the day in the 60s when for $25 a month we had free. Generally, it was no more than $25 a month. Blagojevich has a more of a political, and of course, Rod Blagojevich. I'm all in favor of Donald Trump giving people clemency. Every single time he does that, he lightens our cost as taxpayers to keep these people in prison. Thank you. CIA is in prison. Well, you had a statement from. We have a video we could put ahead of that. Fracking-induced earthquake. Guess what? It's not Oklahoma. This is from Swing Set. Let's take a look.
Asia. Guys, check it out. China now has a new small earthquake, which is, I think, the first earthquake they've reported in China. Well, technically it's Mongolia. But let's just go get the coordinates for this, put it in, and go take a look and see what's there. So, much love to the people in China. You guys got a lot going on. We've got a lot going on all around the world right now in light of the coronavirus situation, but I think that's starting to improve, guys. Hey, look at this. What is this? What do we got going on out here? Well, clearly we've got pipelines and tanks of some kind, but what's this? What are those? Oh, wow. You know what this looks like to me? Sure does. Oil. Oil and gas. That's an oil and gas pumping operation if I've ever seen one.
Yeah.
Look at this.
Wow.
Oh, I've got a high resolution image on this. Yeah, pipelines, jacks, pumps. Yeah, there you go. You can see the shadow of the oil well. Ah, a Chinese fracking operation. Isn't that swell? Isn't that absolutely fabulous? Wonderful. You know what? I'm going to mark this. First one I've ever found over here. Oil pumping. China. Mongolia. Well, hey, there's proof right there. It's not just the United States where we got problems with this. This is all across. When you start drilling into your plate, look where we are sandwiched right in between both of our arrows. You are on the interior portion of the craton. Let's back this out and show it to you. This is the center portion of the plate. The mountains, the highlands that rise, it goes all the way down to the Himalayan, back around. Okay, look, you're on the outside edge of it. Just like the outside edge of our craton over in the United States. But this is on the east side. So just think of the United States and think of Oklahoma and where Oklahoma is in relation to the rest of the plate. Here, let me turn it like this and maybe you'll understand what I'm talking about. Think of this like Oklahoma in the middle of the plate, on the edge of the craton.
Yeah, I get the whole point. I'll play more of that later. Yeah, we're talking about fracking leading to earthquakes now in China. The Democrats didn't talk about that. They talked about, limiting fracking, making sure it was safe. Not about the groundwater contamination that's under every fracking site and how benzene is used to frack. I would outlaw the use of benzene or any other toxic chemical to do fracking. You can do a natural fracking, that may not even destabilize the Earth's core. It's done with cold and hot water. You inject super hot water in the middle of your old oil well, and you install cold water in 6 or 7 places and points outside that area, and you will create a veritable natural refinery, creating the cleanest crude oil you'd ever find. And that's something that would be a lot better than what we have today. Now, the Democrats won't talk about that. They won't talk about the simple fact that we are polluting endlessly with plastic waste. And unlike the Democrats, I actually have plans to deal with plastic waste. Voila! Welcome to the Environmental Room, Wasteful Wednesday. We need to price plastic up extensively, like maybe even $1 a bag, and use that money directly to melt down the existing plastic that's all throughout our dumpsters. We have a tremendous amount of dumpster methane potential as well, creating a veritable methane amount of energy coming out of the landfills we have if we handle this properly. But using that amount of money directly toward melting plastic down into oil is the way to go. Clearly, we've got a massive plastic problem across the globe, and I will help the paper industry any way I can to get more paper sacks out there for all of your grocery needs. I don't want people offered plastic, frankly. I'd rather have paper sacks and canvas bags that you can reuse. That's what I would like to see this country go toward. And as far as dealing with this, I'm the only one who talks about chemtrails. The Democrats want to call this stratospheric aerosol injection, like we want to do that someday, and clearly we should never do that. We should never cover the air with chemicals. That's not going to clean up the air. I want to filter the air. I want to actually filter air and water and provide point-of-use filtration that's low-cost filter changes. Right now, to filter water in like a standard filter in my area, if I were to not reverse osmosis my water, my filter costs would be $15 for 5 gallons. But because I use reverse osmosis, I take a lot of solids out of it, and we generally get about 100 gallons for $15. So that's more affordable. But air filtration, water filtration, these are things we need to move toward, not talking about more taxes and more games to make plans to someday get rid of carbon. The Democrats have that idea, and it's not a very effective idea. All right. I can turn this off. I ran it earlier today. We're going to probably do that thing we did on that computer, on this computer.
Probably, yeah.
Sometime in the future.
You could have the dinner on the stove. I wasn't hungry.
Oh, okay.
Or I had some snap peas.
Thank you.
It felt like I just needed
something to eat.
Vegetables.
Yeah, veggies. All right. So we've had a lot of compliments about my hair tonight. So.
You do have nice hair tonight.
Yeah. So they say it looks like a wig to them, but it's my hair, you know.
Well, that's just because your natural hair is so perfect that it looks
I guess,
like a wig.
yeah.
People would love to have a wig that looked as nice as your natural hair.
I guess so, yeah. I know Donald Trump has a very nice wig that he uses every day. No, right now we're in a collapsing economy. Trump's economy is all about Trump branding. Obama's economy was all about wasting money. Trump's economy is about wasting money. But the Trump economy is more like BS, hype. The Obama economy was all about hype as well. I mean, frankly, we didn't see a lot of growth in that sector. But let's not forget that Obama expanded the debt quite a bit. But now Trump has doubled that expansion. Steve Mnuchin, our Treasury Secretary, borrowed $1.5 trillion. He can't explain where it is. And everyone's bragging about the Dow. I don't think the Dow Jones is doing much at all. It's grown, but only because it's being propped up by borrowed money. Yes, can I help you, Tomas? What can I do for you? Hello? Nobody was there. Okay, we'll see you later.
Okay, take care.
Thank you.
All right. Do you think the final debates are going to be completely awesome? We'll see what happens. You don't think any of the Democratic candidates will win against Trump, including Bloomberg? There's certain people I think are interesting. Well, of course I'll vote for David. Stormy Daniels. That's who I'll vote for. But I tend to agree, there's certain things about every candidate that I'm not too fond of. I would say well, he won the last election. But it's a new year. A new election year. Trump won the last election, but it's a new election year. Hello, Gray. 4657. Yeah, well, it was interesting. I felt like Pete definitely has his shtick down. I can see why people say he must be polished by some kind of organization, because he definitely has this whole thing about, I rewatched the opening of the debate about how he was like, people don't want Bernie, a socialist or communist, whatever you want to call him. And then for some reason people don't want a billionaire. I tend to think, though, it was interesting that Bloomberg said, I think I'm the only candidate that's actually run a business. I mean, that kind of stood out to me. How so? I don't understand your question, bannable offense. Nice to see you too, Tommy. I'm not currently in DC. This is a lovely green screen behind me. The same age, 77. Buttigieg is 38. As is Tulsi Gabbard. Klobuchar is 59. Sanders is 78. Steyer's still on 62. His age is... So the people that are still in it are, it's interesting because they didn't show some people, which are, so they have Warren, they didn't show billionaire Tom Steyer tonight. I saw him in the last debate and I wasn't impressed. I don't think there's anything wrong with being gay. Oh goodness, I can't believe David did that right wing split. Whatever, I can believe it. I know, David, whatever. And they didn't show Tulsi Gabbard in it either. You're thinking about buying a new Toyota truck. Should you not? Why would you choose to buy new rather than used? You don't want to buy a used Toyota truck? You want to buy a new one? Why? And the other question is, will you go, do you have the cash to buy it outright? And that's actually the biggest question. Do you have the cash to buy it outright, or are you going to have to get some kind of loan from someone to do so? If you have the cash to buy it outright, yeah, I think it's fine. I mean, but if you have to get a loan, you might want to think again. And even if you do have the cash to buy that, right? Well, here's what I would suggest. If you really are insistent on buying a new truck rather than a used truck, I would encourage you to get a used truck rather than a new truck. But get a 2019 rather than a 2020. Because you can buy a brand new one that's a 2019 that just didn't sell last year.